What we Democrats are fighting for now is nothing short than the survival of our republic. What we are fighting for is the ideals that made America, America. What we are fighting for is each other, our families, our children, our neighbors, and our cities. What we are fighting for is the ability of people to have a good paying job, pay their health care expenses, send their kids to college, and have a real shot at a real American dream. What we are fighting for is Roe versus Wade. Equal pay, equality, women's rights, and gay rights. This is what we are fighting for. And what are we fighting against? A man that wants to turn back the hands of time, to send us into the dark ages. A man who wants more deregulation, more filthy air and slimy rivers, more disregard for the downtrodden, the disabled, the disadvantaged, disregard for women and minorities, and yet more billions for billionaires. A man who will put the balance of the Supreme Court, if reelected, at 7-2, who will choose the strong over the weak, corporations over people, and old men with ideas about women's bodies over women themselves. Now, among us Democrats in this room tonight, nothing that I have said is very controversial. We are nearly united on many, if not all, of these issues. We are united as to what we should be fighting for. But we often seem to be a party divided as to how we should fight. I, however, believe that there is no greater question facing our party and our nation than the question of how. Because this president, no matter how corrupt or immoral he may be, he knows how to fight. He may be the worst president in American history, but he also beat 17 highly qualified opponents, including many smart candidates, each of whom told us how bad he would be. Why or how? Because he is a fighter. What I fear for this Democratic Party that I love so much is that we have a tendency to bring nail clippers to a gunfight. Tonight, however, I want to suggest a different course. I believe that our party, the Democratic Party, must be a party that fights fire with fire. I believe that we can no longer be the party that turns the other cheek. We must be the party that marshals the power of law and government to strike back at those that strike our cheek and to bring those to justice. When they go low, I say, we hit harder. Now, I know that some of you in this room may disagree with me. The answer to Donald Trump, you may say, is to do just the opposite of Donald Trump. Be noble, be kind, be classy. And I am all for each of those things. But tonight, with our country under an unprecedented assault by a con man who fights only for himself and degrades the vulnerable and the powerless and regular hardworking people day in and day out, I believe that we must honestly ask ourselves whether those that we fight for can afford our gentleness. Now, there is no question that we are the party of love in America, of loving thy neighbor, of loving whomever you want to love, of policies that extend a loving hand to those in between jobs, down on their luck, those who are suffering and frail and without support. But here's what I believe. When you're fighting for the values of love, you cannot afford to fight lovingly. If you want peace, prepare for war, the old Latin saying goes. And in that spirit, I say this. If we want a more inclusive, tolerant, compassionate, welcoming, gracious, and merciless America, we must be willing to do battle to achieve it. If we want the American dream for ourselves, our families, our neighbors, our children, and each other, we must leave it all on the field every day and fight for it. Here is what I believe the Democratic Party is. In the eternal battle of David versus Goliath, we are the party of Davids. We are the party of people who want to live their lives, chase their dreams, do their jobs, raise their children, leave the world a little better than they found it. And so often, they find themselves up against Goliaths. They find themselves up against employers who don't treat them right. They find themselves up against an economy rigged so all of the profits and the froth go to a chosen few. They find themselves up against a cruel immigration policy that seeks to throw out people who have spent their lives in the United States trying to build a better life for themselves and their children. They find themselves up against racism and sexism and bigotry. We are the party of Davids. Davids come in black and Davids come in white. Davids are Asian and Latino and Arab. Davids speak English and Davids speak Spanish. Davids are men, and Davids are women, and Davids are gay, and Davids are straight. Davids are everyone who works a job that makes their hands or their feet hurt. There are many Davids in this great state of Iowa. Davids are people that never ask for a handout, but who do need a helping hand when the world changes and they find themselves without a job. Davids are people who don't get enough hours anymore and struggle to figure out a way to find daycare for their children. Davids are parents who want to give their children a better life than they've had, but who, in Trump's America, can't figure out how. Yes, we are the party of Davids. And when you are the party of Davids, you cannot afford to show up without a slingshot.